You're halfway through your morning cup of coffee when that familiar, high-pitched ringing suddenly decides to dial up the volume. It's a sharp, metallic spike that cuts right through the room, and no matter how much water you drink afterward, the hiss just won't settle back down. Most people brush this off as a simple caffeine buzz, or a bit of jitters, but what's actually happening is a calculated biological theft. That coffee is currently acting as a high-speed chemical predator, stripping the vital minerals and B vitamins directly out of your auditory nerve's protective casing. You feel the alert, focused energy in your brain, but your inner ear is suffering through a literal power surge. It wasn't built to survive. We've been told for decades that coffee is a harmless morning ritual, but for a sensitive auditory system, it's like pouring a bucket of salt water onto a live, exposed electrical circuit. You are witnessing a real-time short-circuiting of your hearing, and every extra sip is effectively melting the very insulation that is supposed to keep your world silent. The problem starts with the way caffeine interacts with your microcirculation. While it wakes up your brain, it also acts as a potent vasoconstrictor in certain areas of the head. It narrows the microscopic capillaries that feed the stria vascularis, the high-powered engine of your inner ear. When these tiny vessels tighten, the flow of oxygen-rich blood to your auditory nerve is throttled. This creates a state of localized hypoxia, where the nerve cells are gasping for air while being forced by the caffeine to work at double their normal speed. Imagine redlining a car engine while simultaneously cutting off the oil supply. The resulting friction and heat don't just stay in the cells. They begin to degrade the myelin sheath, that fatty insulation we've talked about before. This is why the ringing doesn't just stay at one level. It pulses and screams because the nerve is literally overheating from the inside out. You are forcing a damaged system to perform at peak capacity without providing the cooling or the insulation it needs to survive the surge. Caffeine is also a powerful diuretic, which most people know means it flushes water out of the body. But what they don't tell you is that it takes your magnesium and vitamin B1 right along with it. These are the two most critical components for maintaining the neural brake pedal that keeps your ears quiet. When your magnesium levels drop, the calcium channels in your nerve cells stay wide open, allowing a constant, uncontrolled flood of electrical signals to reach your brain. This is the biological definition of a short circuit. The nerve is firing because it has lost its ability to reset its electrical charge. If you've been trying to rebuild your shield, but you're still pouring 3 cups of coffee into your system every morning, you are effectively trying to build a sandcastle while the tide is coming in. You are flushing away the very mortar needed to hold your neural insulation together. You can see the exact list of nutrients that coffee steals and how to aggressively replenish them to stop this electrical leakage by following the repair protocol at the link in the description and the pinned comment below. There is a specific phenomenon called auditory sensory overload that caffeine triggers in people with pre-existing nerve damage. Because the caffeine heightens your central nervous system's sensitivity, it lowers the threshold of what your brain considers noise. It makes your thalamus, the gatekeeper of sound, hyper-vigilant. Normally, your brain would filter out the hum of your own blood flow, or the static of your nervous system. But under the influence of a caffeine spike, the gatekeeper falls asleep on the job, or rather, it becomes so frantic that it lets every single signal through. The gain control in your auditory cortex is turned up to 10. This is why the ringing feels sharper and more aggressive after a cup of coffee. It's not just that the sound is there. It's that your brain has lost the ability to ignore it. The caffeine has effectively hot-wired your hearing, bypassing the natural filters that are supposed to keep you sane. The relationship between caffeine and the myelin sheath is particularly destructive when you factor in oxidative stress. Caffeine increases the production of glutamate in the brain, which is the primary excitatory neurotransmitter. While glutamate is necessary for sending signals, too much of it is excitotoxic. It literally excites the nerve cells to death. In the inner ear, this excess glutamate acts like an acid, eating away at the synaptic connections between the hair cells and the auditory nerve. If the protective insulation of the nerve is already frayed from years of high blood sugar or mineral deficiencies, the glutamate has a direct path to the wire. It causes the nerve to vibrate with a high-frequency intensity that mimics the sound of a jet engine or a tea kettle. You aren't just hearing a phantom sound. You are hearing the sound of your own synapses being overwhelmed by an excitatory chemical storm. This is a cumulative problem. You might have been able to drink coffee for 20 years without a single issue, but as we age, our ability to maintain the myelin sheath naturally declines. The margin for error becomes smaller and smaller. Eventually, you reach a tipping point where the daily caffeine habit becomes the primary driver of your tinnitus. It's the constant, low-grade short-circuiting that prevents the nerve from ever entering a state of repair. If the nerve is always on, it can never heal. The only way to break this cycle is to neutralize the excitatory effects of the caffeine and provide the fat-soluble nutrients that can re-insulate the wire even while you're under metabolic stress. You have to give the nerve a coolant and a shield at the same time. You can find the specific lipophilic strategy to protect your ears from this caffeine-induced neural decay at the link below this video. Many people try to switch to decaf, thinking they are solving the problem, but decaf still contains small amounts of caffeine and other chlorogenic acids that can still trigger the stria vascularis to constrict in sensitive individuals. The issue isn't just the caffeine itself, it's the underlying leaky state of your nerves. If your insulation was thick and robust, a cup of coffee wouldn't cause a short circuit. The fact that your ears react to coffee is the ultimate diagnostic proof that your neural shield is compromised. It is your body's way of telling you that your wiring is exposed. Instead of just giving up your favorite morning ritual forever, the more logical approach is to fix the wiring so that it can handle the electrical load again. You need to move from a state of fragile hearing to resilient hearing. The feeling of pulsatile tinnitus, where the ringing seems to beat in time with your heart, is often exacerbated by the way caffeine increases your heart rate and blood pressure while narrowing the ear's arteries. This creates turbulent blood flow right next to the auditory nerve. Because the nerve is missing its muffling insulation, you literally hear the thumping of your own pulse like a drum inside your head. It's a mechanical and electrical failure happening in the same cubic centimeter of space. By rebuilding the muffling layer of the myelin sheath, you create a biological soundproofing that allows the nerve to ignore the physical movement of the nearby arteries. You stop being a prisoner of your own circulatory system. This structural reinforcement is the difference between a life of constant agitation and a life of quiet focus. It takes roughly 72 hours for the caffeine-induced mineral depletion to begin to stabilize. But the damage to the myelin sheath takes much longer to patch. You have to be consistent in your shielding efforts. You can't just take a nutrient once and expect the short-circuiting to stop. You have to provide a steady stream of the specific bricks and mortar, the benfodiamine and magnesium cofactors, that allow the nerve to re-insulate itself. Think of it like repairing a dam. You have to stop the water from flowing, the caffeine spikes, while you're applying the new concrete, the nutrients. Once the concrete is dry and the dam is strong, it can handle the pressure again. To learn how to stage this repair process so that you can see results in as little as 14 days, you should access the full repair protocol through the description link. The psychology of this is also vital. When the coffee makes the ringing louder, it triggers a spike in cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol further depletes your B vitamins and magnesium, creating a death spiral for your auditory health. The sound gets louder. You get more stressed. The stress makes the sound even louder, and the cycle continues until you feel like you're losing your mind. Breaking this loop requires a physical intervention in the nervous system. You have to manually calm the nerve by providing it with the fatty insulation it's missing. When the nerve is insulated, the caffeine can't grab it as easily. You become less reactive, not just to the coffee, but to stress, loud noises, and the general chaos of life. You are literally toughening up your brain's ability to handle the world. We also have to look at the crosstalk that happens in the brain when the insulation is thin. When the myelin sheath is degraded, the electrical signals from one nerve fiber can bleed into the next one. This is called aphaptic transmission. In the auditory system, this means that the signals for silence are getting mixed up with the signals for sound. Caffeine increases the speed of these signals, which actually increases the amount of bleed or crosstalk happening between your nerves. It's like two radio stations overlapping on the same frequency. You get a garbled, screeching mess of sound. Rebuilding the insulation is the only way to separate the channels and give your brain a clean, clear signal again. This isn't just about the volume. It's about the quality of the sound your brain is processing. Listen to your ears about an hour after your next cup of coffee. If that hiss has turned into a whistle, or if the fullness in your head feels like a balloon about to pop, you are receiving a direct message from your auditory nerve. It is telling you that its insulation is gone, and it is currently short-circuiting under the metabolic load. You can choose to ignore this warning and continue the erosion, or you can choose to provide the insulation nutrient that will patch the leaks and stop the sparking. You have the power to turn down the internal gain and restore the silent, high-definition world you used to live in. The silence isn't gone. It's just buried under a mountain of electrical noise. You can start the process of uncovering it by following the repair strategy in the pinned comment or the description below. The 14-day clock for neural restoration is always there, waiting for you to provide the right environment to start. Every day you spend in a state of caffeine-induced short-circuiting is a day your nerves are being pushed closer to permanent, irreversible death. But the moment you start the shielding process, the body shifts from decay mode to repair mode. The transcatalyse enzyme starts to work, the oxidative stress begins to lift, and the myelin sheath begins to thicken once more. You can reclaim your mornings and your peace of mind. It's time to stop letting a morning habit destroy your neural wiring. Fix the shield, stop the sparks, and finally find the silence you've been looking for. Take the first step toward a quiet, resilient mind by visiting the link and starting the protocol now. Your ears are waiting for you to make the right move.